Come have fun with us and don't forget to subscribe.
What's up everybody, I'm Rick.
And I'm Anna.
And welcome to a review of Bleach, The Bound, and The Bound Assault on Soul Society arcs. Hello
Welcome.
Anna.
Hello, Rick.
Those two arcs, which kind of feel like one arc really, happened between episode 64 and episode 109 of Bleach.
Yeah.
Bleach, which is an anime that is on our list of anime that we want to watch in our lifetime. And on this channel, what we're doing is that we're covering all of those anime.
Yeah.
In different ways, reviews, reaction, discussions. And for Bleach's case, that was an anime that I've seen most of before. I haven't seen the newest seasons that just started, but that you had never seen before.
Yeah.
And so we've been reacting to, individual episodes, but for like big filler arcs like this, we watch it by ourselves and then do a review.
Yeah.
Which is what we're about to do here, this review. So yeah, Anna, I'll just start by asking you, what did you think of this filler arc? Or we're gonna count it as one arc.
It absolutely feels like a filler arc. It's it uses so many of the same elements of what we had seen in the anime up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of tries to recreate big moments from the what we had seen in the anime up to that point. It doesn't really leave you with anything new, and I mean filler arcs can't really do that because the characters can have big evolutions or any kind of evolution actually.
Well, we have something new, 3D mud souls that
I'm sure will disappear then.
Yeah.
But I feel like even the comedy is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It feels so much like a typical filler arc.
Yeah, which is, we're gonna get heavy inspiration from what happened before.
Yeah.
The way the arc starts is the way the arc ends because we can't,
we have to like tie it back in.
Exactly. So yeah, it does feel like a filler arc, true and true. But is it a filler arc that you enjoyed?
I think it was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We got an okay.
I mean, it was fun watching it,
Yeah.
I like the characters, obviously. The main characters, I mean. There were definitely parts that I didn't really feel so much.
Like what?
Like the bounce.
Oh, they themselves?
As a group,
Yeah.
as a story, as a whatever, not necessarily all of them individually as characters. There were some of them that were actually quite interesting characters. But yeah, I don't know.
So let's get into the story here a little bit. So for those who might not even be familiar with what we're talking about here and who's been watching this video for 3 minutes and like, what's it about? About are these vampiric, beings who gain immortality by sucking on souls, human souls. And they're presented as this kind of, other faction, much like the Quincy, who have some type of spiritual ability, but who are not Shinigami or Hollows.
I think in that sense it's very interesting. I really like the fact that the way they came up with the story, it feels very believable in their world, right? You could think that this group of people would exist. And
later on they tied it even more. So as we get into the story, right, they start investigating the bounds and why are they sucking living human souls? That was supposed to be a taboo. Right. Then we discover that actually they're doing it in order to, gain strength and prepare for a big attack. They don't know where the attack is going to be. Twist, it's Soul Society.
I mean, like I was saying, trying to copy.
So yeah, they go to Soul Society, fight ensues, they lose. But with an interesting twist at the end where we can get there a bit later. But yeah, they lose and then the heroes go back home. Quincy's central element in all of this.
Yeah.
Shinigami's central element in all of this. Because, first of all, in terms of the Shinigami, they were the one who created the Bound.
Right.
And then discarded them. And then tried to kind of, let's get rid
not
of
talk
them.
about, right.
which I think is an interesting element. And that brings a certain level of depth to the group. You didn't find that interesting?
That was interesting, yeah,
Yeah?
for sure. I liked. I mean, I can't say like, okay, because it's a bad thing, but I liked it as as a story, right? It was very interesting, and
So when you say you don't like them, it's more them as characters then.
yeah, I mean, from the time they were introduced, they kind of felt floating in the story. They didn't feel to me that grounded as characters, as a group, except for a few of the characters that, like, if you take them individually, how do I put this? It felt like each of the character individually didn't all have like strong enough characteristics that, like, the moment when you would look at them as a group, they were kind of stripped of their characteristics and it was just like the leader and the followers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, they weren't that well developed individually that when you bring them together, you would find it interesting to watch them, whatever they were doing as a group, right? Like, take the old man, for example, of the Bounce. I thought he was interesting, but just like a little bit, and then when you put him in the group, he disappears.
He disappears. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I see what
like
you mean.
that.
Yeah.
That's
see
what I
you
meant.
mean.
Their story, their backstory, their background story was interesting of how they were created and all of that. And I like that it really tied in so well with the rest of the anime.
In that sense, yeah, I can agree with that. I think the standout was definitely the big one, Koga.
Yeah.
Who was, fleshed out a little bit more. We had a whole flashback for him where he had that kid and the kid died. Well, it wasn't his kid. He was taking care of the kid.
Yeah. So as I was saying, right, with some exceptions, definitely he's one of those exceptions. That even when he was within the group, he still stood out.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I don't feel that way for our main guy, our main antagonist, Jin, who, to me, up until the very end where they kind of question his motive, and at that point that was interesting. Everything else is kind of like, I don't care for you.
Yeah, and it feels so underwhelming because this anime so far has done a great job at creating antagonists. Yeah. And in this story arc, the main antagonist was not as, I don't know, intriguing, I guess. I would say even at the end, when you kind of question his motives and all of that, it's like you have a glimpse of something that has potential to be interesting, but then they cut it. It's like,
we don't get into it that much deeper, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They're hinting at the fact that, like, because they lose, most of them are dead, only Koga survives, but they didn't know that at that point in time. So the assumption is all of the Bounce are dead, and they wonder, like, was that what he wanted?
Was that what he wanted all along?
Truly, he didn't want revenge on Soul Society. He wanted all of them to die because they've been living for so long and then such horrible conditions, right?
But I feel like that would have been such an interesting thing to get into if they had introduced it earlier somehow, and then at the end, or maybe, like, drop hints of it along the way, and then at the end it becomes obvious, like, oh my god, that you put it together, but we didn't have that moment. At the end you just get a hint that maybe it was something else, and you're like, I guess it could have been something else, but you don't know. I'm kind of left hanging, so I'm not a fan of that.
I'll say that arc, right, and we've talked a lot about the Bounce, but there was also a heavy involvement of Ishida Uryu. And it does something that I'm not a fan when fillers do that, is that they meddle with the core story.
Yeah.
So, and this case, Uryu lost his power, right?
Right.
The others don't know.
Yeah.
But then they discover during the fillers that he did.
That he did, yes.
And then they find a way to,
like, allow him to use his power for a little time.
Yeah, for a little bit. And then at the end, we're back to status quo. But, like, it's kind of murking the waters too much for me of, like, what happens afterward when...
I feel like there might be a moment afterwards when they're supposed to find out that he can't use his power anymore. And now that we've seen it in the filler, first of all, it's going to be redundant. Second of all, it's not going to be as impactful, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not a fan of, even if you take away that part about them finding out, which interferes with the main storyline. I don't like that, like, oh, but here's a loophole. You can use your power for a bit
For a
now,
little bit, yeah.
and then it goes away again. Like that. Don't do that.
But they did it, and
They did it.
yeah. But that also allowed him to have a more central role in the story of this arc, more so than I would say Ichigo. Even I felt like Ichigo was kind
Yeah.
of more sideline. He was there as
I do feel like
a muscle,
Right. I do feel like they used this opportunity to highlight the other characters more than Ichigo, which I kind of agree with, to be honest, because especially towards the end of the previous arc, when
The Soul
we get to
Society
the
arc.
Soul Society arc, when we get to the big fights and all of that, Ichigo was at the center of it. With the training that he gets in Soul Society, he becomes like super strong and is miles ahead everyone else at that point. So it does feel like he's like him being he's the main character, but like him being the central character of a lot of different moments takes away some of the spotlight from the other
from
characters.
the other,
Yeah. So having a filler arc that focuses more on other characters is actually it's a good balance.
Yeah, but he was still there, so like it's not like
Yeah.
they took him out. He was still there, and
Yeah.
they did that thing where it's like, oh, I can't fight at my full power anymore.
Yeah, they did do that. That's true. That's also something that I don't like.
Yeah, but I mean, there was some good in here, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that this arc was bad. Personally, I think it's a good one. If I may say one more bad things before we get to the good, it's too long though. It's way too long.
Yes, way too long. Way too long. By towards the end, I was like, how many more episodes are left?
Cut it by half.
Right.
Like it is so long.
So long.
Yeah.
And maybe if you make it shorter, it becomes a bit more concentrated, It's more
Moves at a faster pace.
Yeah,
You're more
exactly.
like, yeah, sometimes like it felt, when they were in the hospital fighting those two kid bounts, like it felt like, has this been happening for 25 episodes?
Exactly. True. Too long.
Even when it's not the case, right? It's just because it's so long, and they fight these bounts so many times also, right?
Yes, that's also a part of it. I feel like the old man, they fight him twice.
Yeah, the old man, they fight him twice, and it's long fights.
Right.
And
it doesn't feel like the second fight brings something new compared to the first one.
Exactly. They're just stronger, but they do the same things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good planning.
But let's pivot to positive, right? Because it's not all negatives. I think, I was saying Koga as a character, I think, is a good character.
Yeah.
I like how they explored, his past, his motivations.
Right.
And having him survive at the end also brings an interesting element of like, oh, okay, so what does he do from now on, right?
It
Does
feels like he's the redeeming character
exactly.
amongst all of them, right?
Something else that I also liked is, and you were saying maybe we'll never see them, but I kind of like them, those three Matsuos.
Oh yeah, I like them too. I like them. I wasn't a fan of how they were introduced.
As enemy at first.
Yeah, exactly. As enemy at first, but then like, oh, what do you see? It was actually a test.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, sure.
Yeah. Even that part was so long, right?
Yeah,
just the
fighting
test.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But them as characters, I like them. They were interesting. They were funny. I mean, they were there mostly for comic purposes. I mean, they did play a part in the fight too, but it was mostly comic.
But they're like Kon, right? Kon is there just for the jokes.
Yeah.
But I kind of prefer their side of the jokes more than his.
I feel like also the way they interacted with each other was interesting. Oh, it was funny to watch.
So yeah, those were good additions too. And like you said, I think it's very well woven into the overall world, right? It doesn't feel like, that's a thing that should never exist in their world.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a stretch.
Yeah.
Right.
Even the fact that Soul Society created them and then
it's totally believable.
Yeah, and then threw them in the trash. It's like, yeah, that sounds like something they would do.
There's something that they would do. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, It's possible that they did many other things. Like who knows what else is
Yeah.
out there that Soul Society created and
Mhm.
then left hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely believe that. All in all, I think a good watch.
Yeah.
Too long.
Definitely.
The longer it gets, the less interesting
Right. And
it gets, because you're just wondering like how much longer is this gonna go.
yeah.
Mhm. And it was my second time watching it, and somehow this time felt longer. But yeah, any final words?
I hope the next fillers are not as long. I know that this anime has many fillers.
Yeah, it has a lot.
So maybe my hope will not come true. I wish they would have, if they were gonna make it so long, I wish they would have taken more time to just develop characters individually. Like I mentioned with
rather
the
than
old
have so
man.
many fights.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned with the old man, I thought he had so much potential. It was very interesting.
Mhm.
They got a little bit into the fact that he became old because
He was
was consuming living souls, but then he stopped, and that's when he became old. I would have been curious to hear more about that.
Mhm.
We didn't even get a flashback of that,
Yeah. When Koga got a flashback, it felt like, all of them are gonna be
Yeah,
super
exactly.
fleshed out.
Yeah.
And no, that wasn't the case.
It wasn't the case. I feel like they could have used, if they wanted to make it so long, they could have used the time,
Mhm.
focusing on this.
Another interesting element, we didn't bring it up. There was a Shinigami with them, right? Who used to be in Squad 11.
Yeah,
That was
right.
an interesting
That was also
storyline.
interesting.
Because you would assume, right, that as Kenpachi killed the previous captain, not everyone would just.
Would have been happy with it.
Yeah. So I think it's nice that they brought that into it.
Yeah.
The Bount arc seems that from both of us it was okay.
It was okay. Yeah.
But I do wonder what you guys think. Did you like this arc? Let us know in the comment section below. After this, we were going back to our regular reactions.
Oh,
And
I
actually,
can't
I think even 109, which is the last episode of the Bount one, we also did a reaction because there's a little bit at the end that is
Yeah.
not filler. So yeah, look out for that. And I think you keep saying Bleach is high on your list right now
yes,
of things that we're
definitely.
watching.
Definitely.
I think you're gonna love what's coming
Oh
up.
my gosh!
So
Don't get me too excited about it.
the hype. Let the hype flow through you.
Oh.
Yes. So if you guys want to see all of that, we invite you to.
Subscribe to this channel. The button is down below.
Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking it if you did, and have
Have a nice day.